All right, ready to dive into a world you're probably a little too familiar with.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Yep, Argentine ants.
Those little guys, always up to no good.
They might just seem like another tiny pest, but trust me, there's a lot more to these little guys than meets the eye. We've got some fascinating research to unpack today.
Definitely. And to guide us through this deep dive, we're looking at an article from Simple Pest Management.
Okay.
It's called Do Argentine Ants Bite? Here's what to know.
Catchy title.
It really gets into what makes these ants so successful, going way beyond just the simple quotient of bites.
So let's get right to it then. Do these common invaders actually bite?
Well, the article says, for the most part, no.
Okay.
I mean, they do have mandibles, obviously,
Right.
but they're more for carrying food, not attacking humans.
You're saying they're not coming for us.
Not really. You'd have to really, really provoke them to get a little pinch. They don't have stingers, unlike fire ants.
Okay, no painful stings, that's good. But the article hints there's still quite the nuisance.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of trouble can such tiny creatures really cause?
Well, they're known for forming these massive colonies.
Massive.
Oh, yeah. And we're not talking about a few hundred ants here. These colonies can have multiple queens.
Multiple queens. That sounds intense.
It is. It lets them spread so fast and establish themselves really quickly.
Multiple queens. Feels like a Game of Thrones episode. Not an ant colony. How does that even work?
It's a pretty fascinating adaptation. Having all those queens means that even if one part of the colony gets disrupted, the others can just keep going strong.
Resilient little guys?
Plus, they communicate and coordinate everything they do through pheromone trails. That's how they always seem to find your kitchen counter, even if there's just a single crumb.
So it's like a super organized network guided by these chemical signals. No wonder they're so difficult to control.
Exactly. The pheromones are key to their success. They use them to lay down these trails to food sources. Other ants then follow the scent, which reinforces the trail, and that just leads to a never-ending stream of those little foragers.
Makes sense. It's a nightmare for anyone who's ever left out, like a crumb for more than a few seconds.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier they're more than just a nuisance, though. What are the wider impacts of these huge colonies?
It gets really interesting here. The article mentions that Argentine ants can actually disrupt local ecosystems.
Disrupt.
One way they do this is by farming aphids.
Hold on. Aphid farming. Like miniature ant farmers tending to their tiny livestock.
Not exactly like human farming, but they basically protect aphids from predators.
Okay.
And in return, they get honeydew. It's a sugary substance that the aphids secrete.
A mutually beneficial relationship.
It is. It's just that it throws the natural balance of the ecosystem out of whack.
So these tiny creatures are impacting other species, disrupting the food chain, essentially rewriting the rules of the game. It's incredible how much impact they have. And a bit frightening, too, honestly.
It really shows how interconnected nature is, and how even creatures we think of as insignificant can play a huge role in shaping their environment.
Okay, so we've established they're incredibly adaptable, highly organized, capable of disrupting ecosystems. But what about the listener who's dealing with an infestation right now?
Right.
What does the article recommend? What can we do to combat these tiny invaders?
So they do discuss some DIY solutions,
Like what?
things like baits and traps. Those can be helpful for smaller infestations. But they also emphasize that professional pest control is often needed, especially for larger problems that just keep coming back.
Considering their complex colonies and all those pheromone trails, it
Well,
seems like you'd need a pretty targeted approach.
you do. That's where companies like Simple Pest Management come in. They really understand the biology and behavior of Argentine ants and can tailor their treatments to effectively get rid of the whole colony.
So for anyone feeling overwhelmed battling these little conquerors, there's hope.
Absolutely. You don't have to fight this battle alone.
And we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll delve deeper into the world of Argentine ants, exploring the secrets behind their global dominance and what we can learn from these tiny but mighty creatures.
Stay with us. There's a lot more to uncover. We've only just scratched the surface. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about how Argentine ants have spread across the globe.
It's kind of wild, right? They've managed to establish themselves on every continent except Antarctica. Makes you wonder how these little guys have become one of the most successful invasive species around.
It is remarkable.
So what's their secret?
Well, the Simple Pest Management article doesn't really go into their evolutionary history,
Okay.
but it does talk about some key factors.
Let's hear 'em. What makes them such formidable conquerors?
One big one is their adaptability. They thrive in all kinds of environments, from urban centers to agricultural landscapes.
Flexible little guys.
Right. And they're not picky eaters either, so they can take advantage of tons of different food sources.
Flexible, opportunistic, resourceful. Sounds like a recipe for success in any field, not just the ant world.
Totally. And remember how we were talking about how they don't have a sting?
Yeah.
Well, that might actually be another advantage.
Really?
Yeah, they can focus all their energy on foraging and reproduction instead of, defense.
So instead of investing in weaponry, they've optimized for efficiency and expansion.
Exactly. It's like they've cracked the code for survival.
Smart. And of course, we can't forget those massive multi-queen colonies.
Oh, yeah, those give them a huge advantage.
Like a built-in redundancy system, right?
Yeah,
If one part of the colony gets disrupted, the other parts just keep going.
exactly. Plus, they're constantly communicating, coordinating through those pheromone trails. The whole colony is working together.
A superorganism almost.
It is pretty incredible, though, of course, it's not without consequences.
Right, their dominance can have some big impacts on native ecosystems, like with their aphid farming.
Exactly. They protect the aphids, get honeydew in return, but it messes with the whole food web.
It's like their success comes at the expense of other species.
Yeah, it raises some interesting questions about biodiversity loss. And, what does the future hold for Argentine ants?
Will they continue to spread? And what can we as humans learn from their strategies, good and bad?
I think those are really important questions. These ants are more than just pests. They're like a reflection of life on Earth. Complex, unpredictable.
Their story shows that even tiny creatures can have a huge impact, and understanding them is crucial if we want to manage them, mitigate their negative effects.
And sometimes managing them means calling in the experts.
Right, DIY solutions can only go so far. Professionals, like those at Simple Pest Management, they have the knowledge and tools to address the problem effectively.
Absolutely. They can target those Argentine ant colonies specifically, so they're minimizing the impact on other species and preventing future infestations.
So for our listeners out there battling these pests, there's hope. Professional help is available.
Totally. And to learn more about Simple Pest Management and what they offer, you can visit their website.
That's www.simplepest.com.
Yeah, it's a great resource, not just for understanding Argentine ants, but all kinds of common pests.
Now, before we wrap this up, I want to go back to something you said earlier about their global dominance. How have these tiny creatures, with their seemingly simple lives, managed to, conquer so much of the planet?
It's a question that's really fascinated scientists, and honestly, we don't have all the answers. But we can get some clues from their biology and behavior.
Okay, break it down for me. What are some of the key factors that have contributed to their success?
Well, one factor is their incredible ability to form these what we call super colonies.
Super colonies.
Yeah. Unlike most ant species, Argentine ants can create these massive interconnected super colonies. We're talking about super colonies that can stretch for miles.
Miles. Wow, that's almost science fiction. How does that work?
Well, scientists think it has to do with their genetics. Argentine ants all around the world, they share a really similar genetic profile. So ants from different colonies, they recognize each other as kin, not rivals.
So instead of competing, they cooperate and form these huge networks.
Exactly. No aggression, just pure collaboration. It frees them up to focus on expanding their territory and outcompeting other species.
They figured out the ultimate strategy for world domination, unity, and cooperation. Maybe we humans could learn a thing or two from them.
That's a good point. It shows the power of working together towards a common goal.
But of course, there's another side to this, right? Their success has come at a cost.
Definitely. Especially for native ecosystems, their dominance can lead to, less biodiversity, disruption of food webs, and displacement of native species.
A reminder that even the most fascinating, successful creatures can have unintended impacts.
Exactly. We need to understand the dynamics of invasive species and find ways to manage them while also minimizing their impact.
A delicate balance.
Definitely. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what have we learned from these tiny conquerors?
Well, aside from the obvious lessons about teamwork and adaptability, I think their story highlights the importance of paying attention to the small things. Argentine ants. They might seem like pests, but they've really impacted our world.
That's right. They remind us that even seemingly insignificant creatures can have a ripple effect. We are all connected.
And that understanding those connections is essential for navigating the complexities of our planet and ensuring a healthy and sustainable future.
Absolutely.
We've really gone deep on Argentine ants today, from no sting to those massive super colonies. They really keep us on our toes.
They do. They really do. One of the most interesting things is their relationship with humans.
That's true. It goes beyond their impact on ecosystems.
Right. I mean, think about it. They've followed us everywhere. Cities, towns, even our homes. They've adapted to our environments. They use our resources. They're practically part of our daily lives at this point.
It's almost like they're playing this evolutionary game, constantly adapting to stay ahead.
And they're winning. Our crumbs become their feasts, our gardens, their empires. It's really remarkable.
It's interesting, isn't it? They're mirroring our tendencies for expansion, our use of resources, obviously on a much smaller scale.
It is. Makes you think about our own role in shaping the world.
Exactly. Our actions, like global trade, urban development, have they created the perfect conditions for these ants? Unintentionally, of course.
It's a good point. We're not just watching nature, we're part of its evolution.
And our choices, big and small, impact everything, even the tiniest creatures.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, what are some key takeaways for everyone listening? What should we all be thinking about, maybe even as we encounter these ants out in the world?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we can learn from everything, even pests, right? Argentine ants teach us about adaptability, working together, how interconnected life really is.
Yeah, they show us how these seemingly small creatures have a big impact. Understanding them is crucial if we want to manage their populations and lessen any negative effects.
And remember, if you're dealing with an infestation, you don't have to go it alone. There are professional pest control services out there.
Definitely. Companies like Simple Pest Management, they can really help. They have specific solutions to get rid of even the toughest ant problems, help you reclaim your home.
So as we end our exploration of Argentine ants, keep exploring, keep learning, keep being amazed by the natural world, even in its smallest, sometimes most frustrating forms.
Because those little details, that's where we find the biggest lessons. Lessons about life, adaptation, and how everything is connected.
That's it for today's deep dive. We hope you enjoyed learning about Argentine ants. Keep those questions coming, and remember, even the tiniest creatures can lead to the biggest discoveries.